So, I'm going to talk about third gravitating bodies. I'm Daniel Whittington. I'm the Chancellor at Wizard Academy and Whisky Marketing School. Third gravitating bodies is not something you're going to hear a lot about outside of science circles, unless you're at Wizard Academy. And then you're going to hear about it all the time. Now, the origin of the third gravitating body is the three-body problem, which is, how do I make this really simple? It gets started talking about it in, like Newton works on it when he's working with gravity, and then in the 1700s, the phrase three-body problem shows up, and Poincaré starts writing possible solutions for it. But the shortest version I can think of to explain it is, if you have two gravitating bodies, think Earth and Moon, then the way they interact with each other is a pretty simple math problem. And if you're trying to leave from Earth and get to Moon, or do anything that has to interact with knowing where those two gravitating bodies are going to be at any given moment, it's pretty predictable. But once you add a third body with its own gravitational force, then instantly things become unpredictable past a certain point. And actually, the people trying to solve this with math have been doing it for, 400 years. But this means like when you leave Earth and you're trying to head to Moon, you have to not only take into account yourself as the rocket that's moving, but also the sun's pull and the Earth's pull and the Moon's pull, and it gets super complex. Now, the founder of Wizard Academy, Roy Williams, posited when he was looking at this that this is a thing that is not just true of physics and planetary bodies, but that it is also true of communication and what the human mind is attracted to. And effectively, what he posited was chaos is what draws human attention. And chaos is not randomness. So let me pause there and just say, randomness is random, unpredictable, unexpected, doesn't fit, scattered, never resolves. That's randomness, right? Chaos is a pattern that is surprising and unexpected and unpredictable until you see enough of it or get far enough away from it, right? And so fire is a chaotic pattern, right? And waves on a shore and the tides are chaotic patterns. When viewed from a distance, they follow very specific rules and generally can be framed, but up close staring into a fireplace, it's unpredictable. There's a flick here and a burst here and a dark coal there and a cold spot, and you see what I mean? Up close, it feels random, but it's not, it's chaotic. And when you get far enough back, it follows certain rules. This is what attracts the human mind to anything interesting. And so what Roy sort of came up with in the marketing and advertising community was that to create anything magical, you need to create third gravitating bodies. And the way that you do that on purpose, because it's hard to think of something that shouldn't belong and makes things seem chaotic, but then make it fit, is that you take something that shouldn't be there, and then you figure out how to make it fit. And the more it doesn't belong, but fits perfectly, the more successful it is, right? That sentence right there is the definition of every great joke you've ever heard. If it doesn't belong, and then when you get to the punchline, it doesn't fit, that's called a joke that your 5-year-old made up, right? If it doesn't belong, if it pretty much belongs and then fits, that's called dad joke or pun, right? It's predictable and, I see what you did there, right? But if it totally doesn't belong, but then once it lands, it fits perfectly in a way you never expected, that's the definition of a third gravitating body. Now, beware, this is a nerdy video. So let's drink some whiskey first. There were two people I have to thank for this bottle. One of them is Nathan Huey, and the other one is Patty Bennington, who made sure that we could be drinking this today. So Patty Bennington, Nathan Huey, cheers. This is Compass Box, and this is the Experimental Grain Project. And why I chose this one is because they took something that doesn't belong, and we're going to find out together whether they made it fit. So this is all grain whiskey. Now, if you don't remember, grain whiskey is in Scotland, can be any grain, corn, wheat, rye, barley, usually corn or wheat, and run through a column still, distilled not as high as vodka, but higher than typical whiskey, and then put into barrels. It's the base grain. It was made legal in the early 1900s. Before that, they didn't consider it whiskey. There's a big argument about it. They resolved it. It's now considered whiskey, but it's not considered single malt or malt. Malt means barley. They blended multiple grains together with this one. So this is a product of what they normally use from Cameron Bridge and Great British Distillery, which is grain whiskey is often the base whiskey of a lot of famous blends like Johnny Walker, Grouse, Chivas, Dewar's, and then they add malt whiskey to add flavor to it. Well, Compass Box is weird, and they chose another partner who also likes doing weird things, which is Loch Lomond, who decided to use their coffee still, like Aeneas Coffee, the Irishman who invented the coffee, the column still that's closer to what we use today. And they put through it peated barley through the column still. And Compass Box blended that in. So there you go. Should not be there. A peated malt should not be run through a column. They did. And then they blended it with other grains. Who the hell knows whether they made it fit? Right? But probably because it's, Compass Box. Oh. It smells like a blend. So what's weird is it smells like the grain with a malt rounder. It has that sort of thin, vanilla, wafery kind of first presentation of nose. And then as soon as you get through that sort of vanilla wafer, sort of metallic, thin, there's this layer of medicinal smoke sort of drifting through it. But there's also some fruit in there that I don't normally get on grain whiskey. It's definitely grain, and it's definitely thin, but it's definitely interesting. Oh, there it is. Okay, it came together in the palate. The finish is mostly that ashy smoke. And still strong vanilla cream, but now it's more like creme brulee. Still a little bit harsh is the wrong word, but it's a little bit like, it's bright and brash. I would actually have thought that this was a blend, grain-based malt rounder, and a smoky blend, and a great blend. I would never have thought just grain whiskey. So that's cool. I don't know if you can get this one anymore, but they're going to continue, from some of the things I read, to do weird experimental things with grain whiskey. So they're one of the few places you can get grain whiskey that's really well thought through and not just a single grain release, but like their hedonism. Worth checking out. Okay, so why should you know about the third gravitating body? Because, well, two reasons. If you're a creator, I'm going to tell you that to finish. But just in general, what I find in life is that you experience more when you pay attention to what's happening around you. I mean, and it sounds so trite, but sometimes the trite things need to be said. Being present and understanding what's happening around you. I had someone who told me, pay attention to what makes you laugh, cry, or get angry, because it will tell you something about yourself, right? So if you find yourself just all of a sudden laughing unexpectedly about something, instead of just moving on, stop, ask yourself, why did that make me laugh? If you found something, you suddenly have like unexpected tears in your eyes, stop, think, why did that happen? What just happened? And why did that thing move me that way? You learn something about yourself, you learn something about the world around you. You will find, go back to your favorite whiskey or your favorite meal or your favorite song, and I guarantee you, if you look, you're gonna find a thing in there that shouldn't be in there, but is so perfectly melded in that it's incomplete without it now, And it takes it from being just good or interesting to remarkable and memorable. And that's the definition of a third gravitating body. If you're creating something, it's really hard to do this on purpose, because when you pick something that you know is magical, it's almost impossible to imagine that thing without all of its current ingredients. So that's a bit of a stretch. It's easier to find when you create something like blend. Like if you take bottles from your house and blend them together, you're always going to find your coolest blend is one where you added something that added this totally unexpected thing. Shouldn't have worked, but son of a bitch it did. And you just created a third gravitating body and took something from good to remarkable. So that's what you should be doing in your life. Look for ways to add third gravitating bodies to your world. And if you want to learn more about that, come hang out with us at Wizard Academy. Cheers to you. I'm really glad you're here.